Ferris calls, Ferris demands, Ferris says, it's time to wake the dead!
All right, welcome back, dear viewers. I am making a video because, well, the internet's a funny place. I, the other night, said something innocuous about level drain game mechanics, and oh boy, did it get attention on ye old X. And there was a lot of people, you know, they commented. Some of them were interesting. Some of them I not entirely sure what they were getting at. I think they were just upset that I like level drain mechanics. Anyway, I thought I'd make a video because there's no way I'm going to respond to like hundreds of tweets and retweets and whatnot. So the internet, God bless it. I absolutely love it. So yeah, we're going to talk about Undead, not just about level drain mechanics. Oh, by the way, I actually kind of wrote a bit of a script. So I'm taking the comments seriously. Normally I would just go off the cuff, but anyway. But yeah, this was maybe, my comment was slightly poorly worded. The use of the phrase fourth wall may have not been appropriate, but if you've been following my channel, and if you're new, welcome. I comment on this a lot. This is something I have been chasing. My life is trying to find the balance between the story game, descriptive aspect of being a game master and the game mechanics aspect, and how to generate fear and trepidation with my players so they actually have a really, truly immersive experience. Okay, this is something I'm always looking out for, and this, for me, where the rubber meets the road and issues of immersion, it's where those mechanics really support whatever it is your characters would be experiencing, so it translates to the player. So like a really awesome boss fight, right, where everyone's really tense and they're like, screaming at like natural 20s or going, oh no, when they take a lot of damage, they're feeling, in a sense, they're feeling what their character would be feeling in that moment, right? So, and fear is just really hard to do because, and I've said this before, you're sitting around a table in a safe space, eating Cheetos, drinking Mountain Dew, or if you're older, sipping on some bourbon and eating some pretzels or something, right? So how do you do that? And obviously I don't think I'll be able to generate an actual flight or fight response from my players, but can I get them to feel something while playing the game? And I think Alien RPG's panic mechanic does a really good job because it's a dice pool mechanic, and the more panic dice that get put into the pool and the more dice you're shaking, the increased chance of panic is there. And I've seen it on my players' face where they're feeling really anxious and they're like, oh man, this is not good, so and I submit to you that level drain is like this, and that's the framework I'm looking at. Okay, I think level drain mechanics should be used, and I fully support their use, whether it's an OSR game or in a new school game. Obviously the details will need to be fleshed out because new school operates a little differently from the OSR. But yeah, I like level drain. It makes undead creatures scary, especially if the level drain mechanic is the exclusive province of the undead. And this is important, and I'll get to this in a little bit. But when the players bump into a goblin or bump into some orcs or bump into an ogre, they kind of have an idea of what they're going to be facing. If they are walking into an ancient cemetery and tomb and they know it's crawling with undead, they know something really, really bad could happen to them. Okay. So it's like it conveys it helps convey some information to the players like right off the bat that sits in the back of their mind, and then they start getting a little nervous, right? Which leads into the fact that they'll be extra cautious. Like, yeah, you should be cautious walking into an ogre lair, because depending on what level you are, that ogre is going to be tough, right? Because they're just, their big thing is, well, they're big and they're strong and they can do a lot of damage when they hit you. A wraith might not do a whole lot of damage, but that level drain is going to be painful, right? And I think right here is where that immersion starts to play. The characters, you know, if you think about them, you know, the warrior and his cleric buddy and the magic user are sneaking into this ancient tomb. Their eyes are wide. They're looking around, right? Well, the players are going to be doing the same thing. They'll be like, okay, I want to make sure, DM, we're not straying too far from each other. We're all going to be within the nimbus of light from our torches or our light spell, whatever. They're going to be real particular about how they communicate information to you, because they don't want to die. Okay. And that's before they even encounter the thing. And then when they do encounter the thing, like there's like this laser focus that happens, especially if, you know, I see this a lot actually with Alien RPG, and the Xenomorph makes its appearance. All of a sudden, everyone's like really focused. They're like, okay, we got to survive this. How do we survive this? Someone actually in the chats, tweet storm. I should create like some sort of graphic where I'm getting swarmed by little X's and blue birds or something. But anyway, actually made a really good point that, you know, players, you know, even if they feel like it sucks that they lost levels, they'll actually feel a kind of loathing and revulsion towards the undead. And if you really think about it, that is like an appropriate response, and actually may be like the closest thing you'll get to the player and the character becoming one. Because the undead are abominations. Like, you know, you're seeing, like, imagine a zombie apocalypse and you see your grandma stumbling down the street. You know, that's aside from the horrifying aspect of it, it's just like an affront to all that is good and holy. You know, you buried your grandma. Why is she walking around? And whoever did that is pretty evil, you know, who raised her, right? So, So I think that was a really good point that this individual made. That it's going to help solidify this like fear and revulsion and loathing. That's very different from how your players and your player characters might feel towards a goblin warren. They might think they're disgusting and annoying, but man, the undead are just loathsome. You know, abominations. You know, that's why you want your cleric, which I'm going to get to in a little bit. A lot of people felt like level drain didn't make any sense in terms of like in-game storytelling, and I just got to bring up Frodo Baggins. The dude got stabbed by a mortal blade and like almost died. His level was drained, right? And it stuck with him the rest of his life. You know what I mean? And think about that. If he didn't get, let's just hypothetically, he was like a 3rd level hobbit when that happened. So he got brought back down to 1st level, right? Almost died. They saved him. And then he continues on and he, you know, destroys the ring and everyone's happy. And he's sitting at home writing his memoir, rubbing his shoulder where he got injured. Yeah, maybe he's like a 8th level, 10th level hobbit at this point, or maybe 15th level depending on the game system, right? So he made those levels back, but had he not suffered that loss, he would have been a slightly higher level. So like in a sense, those wounds carry with you, and I think that does make sense. And another proponent, a defender, if you will, someone who was engaged in this massive commentary, made a point that like the level drain is more than just physical. It's like a spiritual attack on your person, and that's why you're weaker, physically weaker, in terms of like the abstraction of the game mechanics. So yeah, anyway, I think it makes sense, and I like level drain. The arguments did end up kind of changing from are they a good fear-inducing mechanic to just a good mechanic all around. And I still think it's still a good mechanic all around because of what I said in terms of immersion. But then it makes Undead special. One of the things I noticed, I noticed about like monster manuals, especially as I was coming up in the 90s playing a lot of second edition. I mean, obviously TSR was trying to make money, so they were pumping out products, but like all of a sudden you just started seeing all these one-hit die creature types, and I'm just kind of like, what's the difference between a gibberling and a goblin and a kobold? And, you know, fill in the blank here. What's the difference between an orc and a hobgoblin, really? And some of it is cultural, like orcs, and that's why alignment can be important, right? Orcs are like these chaotic, like aggressive creatures, one-hit die creatures, right? But hobgoblins are like lawful evil, so they're a little more orderly. They're like military, you know. So like so that will help color the encounter. Goblins and kobolds over the years have kind of split into like goblins are a little sneakier, and kobolds like using traps. But like a gibberling, I guess they just attack in numbers. I really don't know. But if you take some of the cool things away from Undead, you know, broadly speaking, they just end up becoming another mob, and I think that's unfortunate because the Undead, going back to the fear and loathing, they really should be special. Like, I don't remember what edition it was, but like one edition's skeletons could only really be harmed by bludgeoning weapons, because if you're stabbing at them or swinging a sword at them, there's really nothing in the physiology of the skeleton to like connect with, so your bladed weapons aren't going to do a whole lot of damage. And I think that's cool, especially if it's like the only time you'll see that sort of defensive ability. Right. Same thing with like zombies. I think this might actually be in Shadowdark too. Zombies, once they're brought down to like one hit point, they're not going to fall until either max damage is rolled against them or they fail like a death save or something. I think in Shadowdark it's like the failure of the save. And that totally captures the idea of like this walking corpse it's mindless. There's no soul there. There's no thinking thing there, and it's like just this abomination, right? So, but those are physical undead. So let's go into the supernatural, like the spirit world. You know, we all know kind of how to kill a zombie, but what about something like the Blair Witch or the entity from Paranormal Activity? Right? There's nothing physical you're doing there, and there's nothing really physical it's doing to you. That's all spiritual, right? Until they, you know, the protagonists in the story eventually succumb. So I think level drain makes sense for like those kinds of entities. Totally, 100%. Another reason why it's okay to have level drain, it gives your clerics a time to shine. Your cleric gets to be the hero. I think, especially with paladins. I'm starting to hate paladins, by the way, just because they're overused. And in the old OSR, you just need a cleric. But this is the chance where your cleric can like step up and be like, oh, hey guys, I got this, you know. I think it was it Kevin Lamb? God, I'm trying to remember who said this, but they took a screenshot of the AD&D turning chart and just wanted to point out that my meme involving a 10th level fighter getting brought down to 5th level by a bunch of whites, probably, I mean, it could happen, but statistically probably not, because whites are a 3rd level encounter and a cleric would be able to just destroy the whites. In my defense, though, that was what made it funny. The fighter lost his surprise and a bunch of lucky rolls hit, and now he's a 5th level fighter. And now that encounter's a lot harder, you know. But anyway, but that was the point he was making with that, is like the cleric could easily handle this. So who at that point, level drain, while would suck, isn't going to be as bad because you're going to already be prepared for it mechanically. And related to that, most systems that utilize level drain also utilize gold for experience points. You're going to recover from the lost level pretty quickly if you're smart and you're going back into the dungeon, finding the treasure. So I don't think it's the big disaster everyone was making it out to be. Even in a mixed party where like you have that 10th level fighter, now he's 5th level again. Smart play. His buddies will make sure he's not on the front line or something, right? They get a treasure hoard, and he's going to start climbing the ranks level wise. And and as a corollary to that, if you're running an open table like West Marches style or like a Bro SR style game, 1-to-1 time, all that, the chances are you're going to be running mixed parties anyway. So again, the level loss, and I think people are making a mountain out of a molehill on that. There were a couple contrary arguments that I want to be fair. I don't want to be mean, but I'll just make a point. Someone was like, "Oh, it's not fair. It's arbitrary." Well, technically, when humans create a game, whether it's a sport or a board game or whatever, kind of arbitrary. Like there's nothing in it that exists in the natural world, right? So you're just sort of making stuff up. What matters is if it's consistent internally as a system. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but life can be kind of arbitrary. Just turn on the news and you'll just see like random good people getting shot and killed. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying I'm happy about it, but I'm just saying it's life. And, if you're walking into a haunted mansion that people know a wraith, inhabits, there's nothing arbitrary about that. You know that there's a wraith there, and wraiths are going to sap your life force from you, Another one was it's not a thematic. I wasn't 100% sure what they were getting at, but again, it goes back to one of the commentators like, well, no, it's like the withering away of spirit and body. Like you just become weaker from your encounter with this like awful, evil, supernatural entity. So if they were thinking more in terms of like you're supposed to be heroic, and getting your levels drained is like the opposite of heroic. I don't know what to tell you there. Like, how can you be heroic if there's no danger, if there's no threat, if there's no stakes involved in what you're doing, Someone was like, it's no fun because you've lost all this time. Again, gold for XP. You'll get it back, whatever. And then I'm going to quote this kind of similar. It's not fun. It's just not fun to lose your character's levels. Your character's not an extension of you. It's a piece of paper. I was actually thinking about holding up a character sheet and tearing it up in front of everybody. But then I was, you'd hear like, you hear 1,000 geeks screaming out, "No, that's a character sheet. That's me." No, it's not. It's a character sheet. It's just an abstraction for, this thing that you're playing. And it's the challenge that makes this game great. I love rolling 3d6 down the line now. Admittedly, when I was younger, I was more of a 4d6, drop the lowest, But, that dinging. Technically, I should be working right now, but whatever. Email notifications. But yeah, I think it's the hard that makes it great. I'm just going to quote Tom Hanks from A League of Their Own. It's the hard that makes it great. And that's why we keep playing. And then finally, there were some interesting conversations as alternatives. And I thought these were really cool. Some decent ideas for like house ruling it, if it's really that problematic. I hate using that word, but the death saves, or you lose a level, the white hits you, you take damage, you make a saving throw. If you fail, then you lose a level. I wouldn't do that. But I don't have a problem with that personally. Like if I sat at your table and you're like, yeah, this is how we do it, I'd be fine with it. But I would make it like a 50-50 kind of thing. Because like in the OSR sense, your saving throws get better. And at some point, level drain won't really be all that dangerous and ends up being just sort of a bad luck on a saving throw. And to me, that loses like any thematic or like in-game immersive sort of thing. So I just make it like a 50-50. You got a coin flip. kind of thing. The more interesting alternative, though, was the stat drain. I know Shadow Dark does this. I like this. I actually like it. I think it's a fine alternative. My only problem with it is a lot of the stat loss can be recuperated with long rest. At least that's when I've seen it. Can't remember if that's what it's like in Shadow Dark off the top of my head. And that bothers me because like the level drain is permanent. Like you have been affected by the undead. And if you're just like, oh, my dexterity, I'm going to go to sleep and I'm all better. Like, no. So I think what I would do in that situation is maybe have like a downtime activity where you have to like spend time in a church to like recuperate, kind of like how Frodo recuperated at the House of Elrond, right? So while your friends, Shadow Dark buddies, are spending their gold carousing, getting some extra XP, you're missing out on that. So you're not getting the extra XP, but you're getting your stats back. So I think that would be that way. There's some like loss, like there's like a serious like side effect from your encounter with the undead. So I don't know. That's I don't know. That's all I got, I guess. If you're new to my channel, please hit like, subscribe, bell icon. If you're on the Mean Green Rumble machine, give me a follow there too. YouTube is algorithm's weird. And if you're on Facebook, go to Gaming with Lord Mattias and give me a follow there. I'd like to start streaming there just to sort of see what that's like and what, you know, and I'll probably be doing actual plays on Rumble, Facebook, and X. This YouTube channel, though, is primarily for videos like this and a show that I and my friend Gary Lewis do on Friday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Second Watch. We have fun. So we'd love to see you. We talk about games, whether it's like game mastery techniques to the games we're playing to new products coming out. We try to keep it light, though sometimes we disagree. And it's hilarious when we do, or so I'm told. And we'd love to see you there. Jump in the chat, say hi, ask a few questions, have a drink with us, and start your weekend off right. So, anyway, that's all I got. I don't know. Let's make Undead great again. Mooga.